Hello and welcome to YNWA Transfer News, your ultimate source for all Liverpool FC transfer news. Our first news is this. Alexander Isak takes most drastic action yet at Newcastle to force Liverpool transfer. Alexander Isak has made his stance clear on his Newcastle United future as he continues to be linked with a move to Liverpool. Newcastle forward Isak, 25, has been linked with Liverpool throughout the summer transfer window, having previously been the subject of a bid worth around 110 million plus add-ons, which was rejected by the Magpies earlier this month. The Swede was omitted from Newcastle's pre-season tour of Asia and trained with former club Real Sociedad. Isak returned to the Magpies training ground last week, but was told to stay away from first-team training by manager Eddie Howe, and the English coach issued an update on the situation following his side's 2-0 defeat in a pre-season friendly against Atletico Madrid on Saturday. "I think everything is in play," Howe said. "I've said many times he is contracted to us. He is our player. The club make the decision on his future. I don't know what that will be. Of course I have a preferred outcome. I want the best and the strongest squad possible, but I also want players that really want to play for this football club." When asked what needs to change for Isak to be reintroduced to the fold, Howe replied, "That's not for me to answer. That's for him to answer." And with Newcastle's Premier League opener against Aston Villa at Villa Park just 4 days away, all parties will be keen to resolve the situation. However, on Tuesday, The Athletic's David Ornstein reported that Isak regards his career at St. James's Park as finished and has no desire to reintegrate into the squad. Ornstein also claimed that it is likely the Swede will miss the trip to Birmingham amid claims he is adamant that he will never play for Newcastle again. Despite the interest from Liverpool, Newcastle have maintained that the player is not for sale this summer, although according to the report, their stance may soften if a proposal closer to 150 meters arrives and they can fill Isak's void through the market. Most fans are in agreement that Liverpool are in need of bolstering their attacking options following the recent departures of Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez, with captain Virgil van Dijk even urging the club to bring in a forward following the Reds' Community Shield defeat to Crystal Palace on Sunday. "I think there's always room for an attacker in order to strengthen us, so let's see what the window brings in terms of the balance of the team," Van Dijk told TalkSport. The transfer window will remain open until 7 p.m. on September 1st. Alexander Isak takes drastic action to force Liverpool transfer as Newcastle weigh up record offer. Alexander Isak has taken drastic action to force his Liverpool transfer as Newcastle weigh up a record offer for the striker. The Newcastle striker was left out of the squad for the club's pre-season tour last week, before it emerged that Isak had asked to leave St. James's Park. Premier League champions Liverpool have been the most strongly linked with a move for the striker, but Al Hilal have also been mentioned. But it will take a huge offer for Newcastle to sell their star player, with some estimates suggesting the Magpies would want 150 million, according to TalkSport. Isak has not returned to the training ground since he asked to leave last week. Instead, he is following a training program at home, while Newcastle debate his future. The same report claims Isak would demand $300,000 a week to commit to a new contract at Newcastle. According to TalkSport, Isak has not returned to the training ground since he asked to leave last week. Instead, he is following a training program at home while Newcastle debate his future. The same report claims Isak would demand $300,000 a week to commit to a new contract at Newcastle. Will Alexander Isak leave Newcastle? It is difficult to tell at this stage, but a departure is a clear possibility. Newcastle do not have the same PSR concerns as last summer, when they were forced into selling both Elliot Anderson and Yankuba Minte. However, a 150 million sale would likely eliminate any such worries for the next 3-year cycle. It would also give them the funds to reinvest, but as this summer has shown, that does not necessarily help. Dean Huijsen, Brian Mbeumo, João Pedro, Hughes, Ekitike, and James Trafford have all rejected moves to Tyneside this summer. There may be lessons to learn from how Tottenham Hotspur reinvested the 85 million they received for Gareth Bale back in 2013. They signed 7 players and only Christian. Eriksen and Eric Lamela were long-term successes in North London. Do Liverpool need Alexander Isak? It is hard to argue that the Premier League champions, having already spent nearly 300 million, need Isak, but he would be a great addition. The Swede is a dynamic Premier League striker entering the prime years of his career. He scored 27 goals last season, as he finished second in the Golden Boot race behind Liverpool's own Mo Salah. The main concern with Isak has been a troublesome injury record, with the club citing a thigh injury as his reason for not traveling on the club's pre-season. Toward last season, Eddie Howe admitted on a couple of occasions that they had to protect him due to ongoing groin problems. As an explosive striker at 6'3", muscle injuries are almost inevitable, so his minutes will need to be managed carefully. Liverpool. Ready to sell Kostas Tsimikas before the transfer window closes. As we begin to inch closer and closer to transfer deadline day and the official kickoff of a new Premier League season, Liverpool have work left to do on arrivals, but sales as well. On that front, a defender that appears to have been pegged back by one of those signings, Kostas Tsimikas, is now primed for a summer exit. It's been an interesting summer that saw the Greek contemplate his future following the swift work to secure Milos Kerkez from Bournemouth early in the window. Since that time, speculation has only grown, with it now seemingly coming to a head. The latest a Tsimikas transfer, the Greek Scouser, as he was dubbed by some Liverpool fans, has never truly hit the next gear during his 5 seasons in England. Of course, this came during Andy Robertson's prime, so that is to be expected, but Tsimikas was seen as a fine deputy when needed, who could whip in a decent cross when tasked with the job. However, he has never started more than 9 Premier League matches in a season during his Reds' tenure and has often been overlooked in favor of central defenders like Joe Gomez on occasion. Today, now 29, he is eager to secure regular first-team minutes elsewhere, and there a handful of clubs, including in the Premier League, that would be happy to oblige this request. Fabrizio Romano reported that Nottingham Forest approached the Greek earlier in this window and would be ready to return with a firm bid. Arne Slot confirmed that the reason Kostas was not available for the Community Shield was because of growing transfer interest in him. Slot talks give clear picture. It was reported by TBR chief football correspondent Graham Bailey that the player and coach discussed his future at the club, and the conclusion was an exit was best for him. Tsimikas is now effectively the third choice left back at Liverpool, which is not a spot many 29-year-old footballers want to find themselves in. In addition to Forest, clubs such as Leeds, West Ham and Fulham have shown interest in signing the Greece international this summer. With Robertson no longer on the verge of leaving for Spain, there is just not enough room to keep him happy with his playing time. If given a proper run of matches as an entrenched starter, it would probably be a fair expectation that he would perform very well in the right circumstances. His level has fallen just a bit in recent seasons, but a transfer to a new club could be the fresh start he needs to reignite his career. Virgil van Dijk just told Liverpool they need to sign a striker. This messaging came after Liverpool's crushing Community Shield loss. Virgil van Dijk was the man of the moment for all the wrong reasons against Crystal Palace at Wembley Stadium yesterday. The Dutch defender was at fault for both of the conceded goals, as his defensive composure was not up to its usual standard. Instead of remaining positionally aware and holding the line, Van Dijk came charging forward and left lots of space for Crystal Palace to exploit, which they did. Often his own harshest critic, VVD, doesn't need to be told where he went wrong. He's already reminded himself 100 times in the mirror. However, even the defender doesn't want to take full responsibility for his team's shortcomings. In a valid post-match crash-out, Van Dijk told the Liverpool hierarchy exactly what they need to be taken seriously. Virgil van Dijk thinks Liverpool need a new striker in. His own words, Virgil van Dijk said, "I hate losing and I've lost my last 2 games at Wembley." He also said, "We need a new striker. We just lost Darwin Núñez. I think there's always room for an attacker in order to strengthen us." It's hard to argue with Virgil van Dijk here. Of course, Liverpool fans can be blown away by how well the new signings, especially Hugo Ekitike, have adapted already. However, the depth is not up to standard in the attack, and Liverpool needs to address this. In many ways, Virgil van Dijk is speaking for the Liverpool fans. They have been crying out for another striker even before Darwin was sold. Now he's been sold, though. That need is only intensified. In an ideal world, that new signing would be Alexander Isak. At this point in time, it seems like he's the only logical signing that would make Liverpool compete for the Premier League title again next season. Transfer News Live. Liverpool given Isak boost. Spurs target ease. Man ut. Learn Donnarumma fee. Just a few days to go until the start of the new Premier League season, and clubs are looking to finalize any deals for new signings ahead of their campaigns beginning. Liverpool are still pursuing Alexander Isak, having sold Darwin Núñez to Al Hilal for 46.3, which should open up funds for a bid, but Newcastle have so far been resolute in their desire to keep the Swedish striker. The Magpies do not wish to sell, but the Reds may be encouraged by Isak's insistence that his Newcastle career is over, with it reported that he will not wish to reintegrate with the side even if he stays beyond the deadline. Should he force Newcastle's hand over a sale, Liverpool will be the key beneficiaries. Manchester United, meanwhile, have been handed a huge boost in their pursuit of Gianluigi Donnarumma, with the Italian shot-stopper now looking certain to leave PSG off the back of a stellar 2024-25 campaign. He was entirely left out of their squad to face Tottenham in the Super Cup, with Luis Enrique opting for new signing Lucas Chevalier between the sticks. It comes after United unveiled their new signing Benjamin Sesko to supporters at Old Trafford on Saturday, completing their front-line overhaul this summer with Brian Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha set to feature in a new-look front three for Ruben Amorim. Spurs are also preparing to bolster their own forward line, further by signing Crystal Palace's Ebereki Eze. Palace want a fee in excess of 60 million, and an official offer could soon go in, though Palace's Community Shield win over Liverpool may now make a deal harder to negotiate. Thomas Frank's side are in need of a creator following the long-term injury to James Maddison, and are also in talks for Manchester City's Savinho. Man City eyeing up Rodrigo. Manchester City are considering a sensational move for Real Madrid forward Rodrigo. According to Fabrizio Romano, he is valued at around 87 million and has also attracted reported interest from the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool this summer. Nottingham Forest closing in on James McAtee. Nottingham Forest are close to agreeing a deal for James McAtee, according to The Athletic. A verbal agreement could be reached in the next 24 hours. Alexander Isak ready to force Liverpool move. Alexander Isak is adamant he will not play for Newcastle again, according to The Athletic. This is regardless of whether he stays or leaves in this transfer window, viewing his Magpies career as over with no wish to reintegrate. He wants a move to Liverpool, but the club insists he is not for sale. Gianluigi Donnarumma to the Premier League. Gianluigi Donnarumma will 100% leave PSG this summer, after being left out of their Super Cup squad to face Spurs, as per Fabrizio Romano. Man United are reportedly considering the Italian who would cost just 26 million with a year left on his contract in Paris. Chelsea, meanwhile, are not in talks to sign Donnarumma and don't intend to make him a target, with the Blues said to be happy with their goalkeeper selection. Crystal Palace ramp up interest for Bilal El Khanous. Crystal Palace have intensified their pursuit of Leicester's Bilal El Khanous, The Independent understands. Spurs and Newcastle are also interested in the Moroccan midfielder, who has 3 years left on his deal at the King Power. Tottenham back in talks for Ebereki Eze. Tottenham have reignited their pursuit of Eberechi. Eze, according to Fabrizio Romano. With the club in need of a creator following James Maddison's injury, they have re-entered talks for the Crystal Palace star, rivaling Arsenal for his signature. Spurs are also pursuing a separate deal for Man City's Savinho. Where it went wrong for Jack Grealish at Man City, and how Everton can fix him. They had achieved great success together before their paths diverged. The strategist might have envied the charisma of his ally, but despite their different characters, men with a shared affection for Manchester City seemed in harmony with each other in the good times. Then, suddenly, they were together again. Still, enough about Noel and Liam Gallagher. Pep Guardiola and Jack Grealish bumped into each other at Oasis's homecoming gig at Heaton Park. This, however, was a briefer reunion. They, it transpired, neither need each other nor believe in one another, not anymore. The Gallaghers may bring in a 9-figure sum for their second coming. The damage Newcastle's disastrous summer could do to their wider projected was as early as the first days of June that Eddie Howe and his staff feared this summer was going to be a big problem for Newcastle United. The reason then was not yet failed purchases, the departure of sporting director Paul Mitchell, or even Alexander Isak. Or at least just Isak. Newcastle already knew about the Swede's ambitions to leave for months. Now the same fears were growing about Tino Livramento and Anthony Gordon, with the added concern that any unrest could lead to more agitation in the dressing room. The mood was so foreboding that Howe's staff even asked others in football about potential solutions. It was a huge shift from the satisfaction felt mere weeks before, and the end of a season that was the club's best in decades. The Carabao Cup closed that long wait for a trophy, bringing a sense of release around the club. The final day qualification for a second Champions League campaign in 3 seasons then seemed to take that further, to embolden everyone and afford the club the financial assurance to really press on. There was no longer a PSR need to sell stars like Isak. Richard Cohn, set for QPR move after fee, agreed with Wycombe. Richard Cohn has agreed to join Queen's Park Rangers from Wycombe Wanderers in a deal worth at least 2.75. The two clubs are currently finalizing add-ons, but the principles of an agreement have been struck in a coup for QPR to land the talented forward. The 22-year-old also had interest from Leicester City, Preston North End, and Toulouse, but has instead opted to join QPR, who have successfully sold their ambitious project amid a summer of hugely productive business at Loftus Road.
Thanks for watching. Like and comment. Subscribe.